Hey, what up? It's Natic, another episode of Thoughts by Natic. So for this video, I picked the topic of reboots, and I wanted to explore that a bit. To get things started, what is a reboot? By definition, the word means to start up again after closing or shutting down. As far as us, the public, in a nutshell, the way we're really familiar with it, it's basically entertainment using nostalgia to pull audiences in. For example, I'm a millennial, and I'm losing count of all the childhood shows and games and whatnot that I grew up with that's getting rebooted now. So what's the point, right? Everything has pros and cons. Here's some of the pros. It's a nice hit of nostalgia. Things getting rebooted, it's usually something old getting new life. Sometimes an upgrade or they reimagine the look for the better. They'll modernize it. In a lot of cases, it can complement and dive further into the story, like the original base story or like what the original source material was. I want to say a lot of good reboots. I can see them like characters that, they existed, they were well established, but they weren't as well fleshed out. Some good reboots, they'll dig into that more. They'll give the character more of a personality, I guess, or a different way of approaching them or representing them. Now for the cons, they can feel like a cash grab because it's like, who was asking for this to come out? When it's disloyal to the source material, it can feel like, why are you using the name when you had no intention of following the story that was originally set out? Granted, sometimes the point is to give it something new, but then there's a point where it's like you're being disloyal to things that were already established within the lore or within the world. Unnecessary changes. There's just times where it's like, you did not have to do that. You didn't have to make them taller, you didn't have to make them shorter. Sometimes it could be really complicated, sometimes it could be really simple. When whoever's handling the project inserts their own personal opinions and agendas. It can feel contrived sometimes that like they're rebooting something. The ultimate question is why? Why are you doing this? What is the point? Because a lot of times you just feel it. You can just feel there's something disingenuous about this. Like the fact that I'm seeing this name again. There are times where it's just nobody asked. What's being manipulated is the nostalgia is essentially weaponized against the target audience. So, it's not a hard business thing to understand, but there are times where it's just like, I wouldn't mind something new. Kind of leaning more into movies and TV shows and whatnot, but it's not just that because video games is another arena that has this similar issues going on. On a lighter note though, here's some examples of really good reboot retelling. DuckTales 2017. This actually was a very good approach. It was very different. They fleshed out all the kids, they fleshed out some of the villains. They were trying to make a whole big universe. So they had Rescue Rangers in there, they had Darkwing Duck in there, they had Gummy Bears in there. It was just a real nice balance of fan service and some good storytelling. The Shaft movie from the year 2000 starring Samuel L. Jackson. In this case, they took a character from the 70s and reintroduced them to a modern era. And little did I know that the original Shaft had a cameo in the movie. It's kind of obvious if you have a good eye, but it's easy to go over your head. The Warriors game from 2005. This is a great example of revisiting and fleshing out. What this game did was it took the story and it dove so well into it that I walked away knowing so much more about these characters. I barely knew some of their names, and now I know like a whole bunch of things about them, like how they got their names, how they joined the gang, and it even showed how the Warriors was formed. It was such a treat because it just digs so deep into it. Like, it's so cool. And then personally, I really love the music. Planet of the Apes. So this series, if I'm not mistaken, this series got rebooted a few times. A big part of this too is modern technology, from like the makeup to CGI and whatnot. Like, that wasn't an option back when the original series came out in like, I think it was the late 60s, early 70s. That wasn't an option to do CGI. Like, oh, we'll fix it in post. It's like, no, they had to fix it right there. This was a great retelling, reimagining, and reapproach to something old and gave it a new life. Crash Bandicoot. When that game first came out, the live systems, the continue systems, all those kind of things, that was an era of arcade-inspired games. Like, the point of it was to feed quarters into a machine to keep you playing and keep you playing. We're not in that era anymore. So I really liked how it adopted that, and that was something that that franchise needed, and I don't think anybody realized it needed that. X-Men First Class. I thought the franchise was done by this point, so it was just a different look. And if you're into comic books, this was a very comic book approach to the story. That's what made it awesome. Shooters like Doom and Castle Wolfenstein, these games, they impacted the world as you know it. Every time a new one comes out, you can kind of look at it as a reflection of the advances made within the FPS genre and within gaming as a whole. Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle from 2017 is a prime example of taking the same idea and just running a whole nother direction with it. It's an entirely different movie.
Everybody knows that.
But still showing respect to the original. Rest in peace, Robin Williams. Now, one could argue about Twisted Metal Black because the way they delivered the story, the way they approached the game, not the gameplay. They left the gameplay essentially the same. The delivery and how you absorbed what was going on with the story and the characters, it was such a different approach completely. And that was the first time I ever got put on to Rolling Stones. Now let's go in the other direction, take a look at the meh pile. Netflix is getting notorious with rebooting stuff, and it just really kills me because they're super woke. Prime example of this is Cowboy Bebop. To their credit, I do appreciate the fact that the attempt, very difficult to take something that's from an animated medium and turn it to a live action one, and it's kind of tough to pull off. They did a pretty good job. It was a good proof of point that this can get done. It's just how they're gonna approach it. I deeply did not like what they did to Faye. They turned her into an annoying, insufferable brat, annoying little sister. She was a badass. She was the chick that came and saved the day a few times. She got the guys out of trouble a nice handful of times. They did her such a disservice that it deeply upset me with that. So when they change the race of a character, it can be kind of weird just because it can feel like, why was that done? What was the point? In this case, Mustafa Shakir, the actor that played Jet Black, he knocked it out the park. If it just felt right, he tapped into whatever it was that character brought, he brought it. My whole main gripe with the series was just that everyone had a story and everything was pretty well established. Everything was pretty well fleshed out. Jet was a former detective who was betrayed and he was injured. He has a mechanical arm. Also his goal was to figure out who did it. That was a set story. Everyone had a story. It made a lot of unnecessary changes. It really blows my mind that they took the direction that they took with this. In the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movies, where do I start? They made them absurdly tall. They made them absurdly huge, and it's just kind of hard for me to imagine how the hell 6 foot tall, bulky ass turtles are gonna be able to be ninjas around New York City. It took a very odd approach with the origin story, and the story itself was very contrived. It's a prime example of unnecessary changes. It had all these hallmarks of typical action movies, and granted, it's a Michael Bay movie. You should expect this out of Michael Bay. April had to be hot. There had to be these explosions. There had to be a snarky sidekick character, and Will Arnett was great. It just felt like he was wasted in this film. Who is this actually meant for? I just felt like this was so weird. Mutant Mayhem looks like it's a much better approach, but yeah, I couldn't wrap my head around this movie. It felt like this movie was trying to go as far away from the source material as possible. Like it forgot it wasn't an original piece. Child's Play, Chucky. There's no part of me that understands why this became a series. This is horror I think is a genre that it works better in smaller doses, but what else do you want as an example of a cash grab? This is this franchise has taken so many weird turns, and some of them are pretty cool. I love Jennifer Tilly, loved seeing Redman in that, but at the same time it was just, where the hell are we going? Where is this bus taking me? I want off. To be fair, there's going to be inherent downsides with this because who's behind it really does have an impact on what you're going to get as the end result. All this over-the-top wokeness, virtue signaling, Ghostbusters, Ocean's 8, She-Ra, they were so agenda-driven. It's like, did you forget you were supposed to entertain? You got superhero and comic book based movies, and at this point it feels like a revolving door, and after the MCU it's just like, bro, get me the hell out of here. And it's not because I don't like them, it's just the word fatigue could not be more fitting for this situation. I'm aware this is business. It just almost inherently is a cash grab. It is what it is, don't get me wrong, it's business. It feels like I have a producer low-key telling me, just give me your money. I don't care if you like it or not, just give me your money. That's what a lot of this is starting to come out and feeling like. So when they don't do that, that's fantastic. To wrap this up though, there are reboots that are great. There are reboots that can be really good, but unfortunately it can be hit or miss. There's no getting around that, and that's entertainment in general. I will say that I am glad that the nostalgia overhaul seems to be lightening up over time, but I wouldn't mind going back to the 80s, so to speak, in terms of getting original movies and summer blockbusters. I would love to go back to that. But yeah, on that note, this was a different approach. I hope y'all like it. If you see something you like, or you see something else you want me to cover, I'm gonna go further into this, but I like this new format. I'm gonna keep trying that. Please like, share, subscribe, follow me on my other socials, especially my TikTok, my Instagram. Till next time, peace.